for those who are sitting here to meet us. I, like many of you here today, had the privilege of standing behind our governor. Let me mention what a great governor he is, a good man that he is, a kind and compassionate man. I had the pleasure of standing behind him on the signing of this wonderful bill that we passed, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which essentially did nothing more than to affirm that a person's religious liberty could not be infringed upon by the state except when there was a compelling public interest. This was a good and a necessary piece of legislation. That's when the Indiana's own version of March Madness ensued, and you all saw exactly what I saw. This media frenzy that ensued, where all of a sudden good Hoosiers were being criminalized, good Hoosiers were being called all kinds of names that I had not even heard of before, but we had every name in the book thrown at us. And so we saw this national focus of a well-coordinated effort by the liberal media, large corporations, and gay activists to twist the intent of this good legislation and to turn it into a, quote, license to discriminate. And on top of that, to slander and vilify and threaten anyone who dared to differ with them. Of course, our good governor was dragged before the media lynch mob, where he was challenged repeatedly to prove that he and the people of our great state were not haters and bigots. Then big business piled on with economic threats. The gay mafia began the intimidation campaign, and in blitzkrieg-like fashion, we saw what religious liberty attorneys called the Rolls-Royce of RFRA, one of the strongest religious freedom restoration acts in a week's time, was morphed into a giant lemon that does not protect our religious liberties at all. In fact, it opens the door to greater tyranny. We witnessed a cowardly capitulation by our leadership, who must now be held responsible for turning a bill designed to protect our God-given constitutionally enshrined liberties into what is now effectively a gay rights bill. As the LGBT activists scored a major victory in securing protection for sexual orientation and gender identity for the first time in Indiana law. In fact, before I move on to talk about our supermajority of Republican leaders, let me quickly add that our leadership in the Democratic Party, minority leadership, have not helped us at all in the cause of liberty. In fact, they're enemies of the cause of liberty. I mean, to point out Senator Tim LaNague and Florida Leader Representative Scott Pelaw, and the entire Democratic caucus was against protecting religious liberty from the very moment we started trying to do this. And they're also the ones who are leading the way to create special civil rights status for the LGBT community, which, of course, if you connect any of the dots, you know that is terrible for people of faith who are trying to live out our biblical convictions in public. This is the first time this happens. I just want to say, the Democratic Party is no friend to liberty for Hoosiers in Indiana. We should try to remove them as quickly as possible. Let me say a word to our beloved governor, Governor Pence. I just want to express on behalf of all of us here today that we are hurt and disappointed. As the chief executive of the state of Indiana, you were the face of the RFRA legislation and somebody that we trusted as a friend and a defender of religious liberty. You received godly counsel from strong and wise leaders across this nation who encouraged you to stand firm and to veto this legislation. And you failed us. And in doing so, you betrayed the trust of millions of Hoosiers who elected you to protect the liberties that we hold so dear. But I want to direct the bulk of my comments to where I believe the weight of the responsibility lies for this debacle. And that's on Representative Bosman and Senator Long. Because to me, it is very, let me back up. We had many great leaders here who stood for our liberties, who passed a great piece of legislation, and then found themselves pushed into a corner where they were given two really bad options. Some of them continued to go against the caucus and stand and vote for liberty, but many of them went ahead and voted for the fix. Our comments today are not on those themselves working within the system. Our problem today is with leaders who should know better, with leaders who should lead the caucus in strength, and leaders who should pull us together and stand in unity for religious liberty. Our leaders should not do that. I want to make it clear that Republican leadership was behind this shameful surrender. And you say, how do you know that, Pastor? Let me tell you. I watched the press conference like many of you did. You know the famous Fix press conference, where they continue to repeat a narrative that, hear me, is both deceptive and dangerous. Here's what was going on at that press conference. They stated that they were committed to an Indiana where religious rights and individual rights coexist in harmony. I just want to tell you all, this sounds wonderful. We all know that the demands of the LGBT lobby make this absolutely untenable for those who profess faith in Christ and faithfulness to the Scriptures. It was clear from this press conference that the next discussion will involve the creation of sexual orientation and gender identity as a special protected class in Indiana. Interesting enough, leadership from the gay community stood at a press conference just like this and looked into those cameras, and they promised us, as we all watched that video, that this indeed would become a reality. As Christians, we have no problem demonstrating tolerance for others. In fact, tolerance exists and is valued because of our Christian values, not in spite of them. But the LGBT community is anything but tolerant. They are not content to practice tolerance, demanding instead that people of faith celebrate a lifestyle which is expressly forbidden by God and in the Scriptures. When Christian business owners refuse to participate in homosexual weddings, something which most Christians find to be a mockery of the sacred institution of marriage, they are not extended tolerance. Instead, to the very contrary, they are vilified, they are threatened, they are attacked, and they are fined into submission by a sympathetic state that has foolishly exchanged our God-given First Amendment rights for sexual license.